Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel, it's Cynicalex. And what if I told you that there was a way to increase your damage output versus World Boss Legend, and other PvE content without touching your cards, without touching your Uru or your ISO or even your Obelisk CTP, not even touching the character's uniform or team up? You're probably wondering what's left. Well, it's actually artifacts. Now, I'm actually not 100% sure how much damage, I'm 0% sure how much damage this actually adds, so that's what we're going to be finding out in today's video. I'm going to be testing, and I've already set up some benchmarks for these characters, but I'll go through them with you again before and after we test both generic 2-star and generic 3-star artifacts. Now, specifically, you're looking for artifacts for PvE content that will give you the following text effect: increases basic damage dealt to enemies with, in big letters, pure evil by 9%. 9% for the 3-star and 7% for the 2-star. Now, if you go over to characters like Mephisto and Null, they have the pure evil tag, so this should work in World Boss Legend content, and I'll also be testing it in World Boss Ultimate content as well against Cull Obsidian, who I believe also has the pure evil tag. Actually, he doesn't. It'll be interesting to see if he has the pure evil tag on the World Boss stage, because he doesn't have it on any of these stages, on any of these characters here, but I'm not sure if it's going to make a difference or not. If we see a difference in one and not in the other, then we'll know. And we're going to be testing it on Ghost Rider and Gambit, because Gambit is a very good character in general to test things on, because he has a very simple rotation, very simple, like everything's simple with Gambit. It's just 3-5 combo with your 6-3-5 combo, and then you run away. There's very little room for error, very little room for differences in the playstyle. And then we're also going to be testing it with Ghost Rider, because he already has a ton of increased damage to supervillains. So maybe there is an upper limit, maybe there's diminishing returns on this. So I actually want to test the 3-star version of the artifact on him to see if we don't notice a difference at all. The 2-star version of the artifact on Gambit should be fairly obvious, considering he doesn't have an artifact, and that first 7% of increased damage to villains is going to be pretty huge for him there. So let's get into it with the baseline stats and the baseline runs that we got for both of these characters in World Boss Ultimate and World Boss Legend. So as for Gambit, we're going to be testing on stage 20 of World Boss Legend Null, and in my testing, he was able to clear this between 3 minutes and 55 seconds left on a perfect run and 3 minutes and 45 seconds left on a so-called bad run. So it's going to be somewhere between 355 and 345, which in my opinion places the average right around 350. So that is what I'm guessing he's going to be able to do without the artifact. And it's important to note that for this run, I'm not waiting for the awakening skill to be ready. If it is ready, I will pop it, but unless there's a cage coming up soon. But otherwise, I'm not going to delay a rotation just to squeeze it in, because I want the damage to be very consistent. I want all of the stuff to be, landing right when it should be. A miss proc generally adds about 5 seconds, sometimes a little bit less to the run, but we have not had a missed rotation yet, so this is probably going to clock us at 355. Here we go here. And there you go, down to 1 second. I was basically 1 second off. So I've tested this a lot. This is how fast my Gambit does with this sort of team. And again, the team itself is not very important, like whether I have supports, whether I have CTPs of Insight. As long as we're keeping it consistent and we're keeping the playstyle consistent, only thing that's going to change is going to be that artifact being added on or taken, or not added on in this case. So I also want to test World Boss Ultimate, so we're jumping into stage 99 of Cull Obsidian, and it's important for me to test Cull Obsidian here and not someone like Ebony, for example, even with Ghost Rider, because Cull Obsidian, although he has the debuff immunity that comes into play now and then, he doesn't do many iframes, he doesn't do, many annoying abilities that essentially make the character sort of bad for testing your damage on these types of runs. Whereas with Ebony Maw, he runs around, he teleports, all this kind of thing. So yeah, we want something more consistent here. We always want the cutscene to appear for Cull Obsidian, so if it doesn't appear, we just reset the run. And this run actually takes Gambit on average about 55 seconds, which you'd think is pretty long considering how quickly he gets through the first phase of Null, but that's sort of kind of, it is what it is. Yeah, Cull Obsidian is that tanky despite still being, you know, for one of the forgotten world boss ultimates. So we're actually going to be a little bit ahead of schedule here. This is the only, literally the only iframe he does. But yeah, very, very consistent for, yeah, literally to the dot. Exactly when I was doing it. I mean, could have gone maybe a little bit faster if we had squeezed in a few more fourth skills. But again, we're trying to keep these runs the same, so I'll do the fourth skill maybe once or twice in the run with the artifact, but not consistently. I also don't want Gambit to die, and the fourth skill does leave him open to taking damage. But yeah, so 4 minutes and 5 seconds on the clock for Cull, and 3 minutes and 50 seconds on the clock for Null. Cull and Null. Now, how much does that 2-star artifact add? We have the artifact equipped on Gambit. Now let's see if that 7% really matters. So this should be interesting. Does the artifact affect Cull Obsidian, whether or not he has the Pure Evil ability as a character? Getting down close to 12 bars on the first rotation is kind of a good sign. I will say that much. There we are at 10 bars here. Okay, he's going through some attacks. He's going to get pushed way over the line for his next phase change. I'm going to need you to go to your phase change, my friend. Okay, he goes to his phase change. Nice, all right. I think we're only a couple of seconds ahead of where we were before the artifact, BA, or BTA. But let's see what happens here when we burst this, this attack. Gonna pop one more fourth skill. Okay, looking good. And that's 7 seconds faster. It's basically 1 rotation faster. Now this evidence alone is not enough to convince me that the artifact is working as intended, but now let's go back to Null, and if we notice a difference there as well, we can probably say with more confidence. So stage 20 Null is where we're trying to beat the time of 3 minutes and 50 seconds. Remember, on a good run, on basically a perfect run, Gambit will actually clock in closer to 3:55, or at 3:55 essentially. So I'm hoping we will see something sub 3:55, like, you know, in maybe the 4-minute range. Because if that's what we see, then we can say much more definitively or with much more confidence that these artifacts are adding a lot. Unless something, you know, really bad happens here, like he knocks me back into a 3-second stun or something like that. Obviously, that would ruin the RNG of the fight. Now here, we did have the opportunity to use the Awakening skill, but I didn't want to squeeze it in before a cage, and Gambit, unfortunately, gets caught by the cages very easily, and it's very hard for him to dodge the cages. So I think because of that, it's better to test with that same strategy going into every rotation, where I'm basically ignoring, you know, ignoring that possibility. Now, we just hit 4 minutes, unfortunately, but 3:57. It's not a lot. It's... Listen, 3:55 was the absolute best time that I got without the artifact. Now, in general, he was much closer to 3:50 on the majority of the runs. However, yeah, what do you expect from 7% increased damage? It's not going to be a world of difference. It may be the difference between you clearing a stage and not clearing a stage, but maybe I was hoping for too big of a change to see a 5-second bump in his timing, considering how fast he's already going. But that's not to say that we're done yet. Now we have to test Ghost Rider. I really wanted to test Ghost Rider on stage 99 of Ebony, but unfortunately, Ebony just iframes way too much and basically ruins the testing. So with this run here, we're hoping that we will see basically similar RNG. We want to be able to pop 6 as soon as it comes up, and then ride this damage out. And we should see the cutscene there. Awesome. Okay, very, very good. And on average, he's between 4 minutes and 20 seconds and 4 minutes and 25 seconds. So there, again, there's a 5-second variance depending on when you get your tier 3 and this kind of thing to pop off. But otherwise, it's basically the same, except our judgment didn't proc there, which is bizarre. But yeah, you're going to see here, like I said, between 25 and 20. It was actually just a hair under that, but that's fine. 425, 420 is really the time here against Cull, and he's really the best one to test this against because he doesn't move around all that much. In Null's case, I actually had to go up to stage 24 because he was clearing stage 20 too fast. That's just shout out to the power of the Ghost Rider. So let's see what he does on stage 24. For null stage 24, I had to actually bring along Cable Lead for Ghost Rider because he needs the ignore dodge on his regular 1 to 5 rotation to make it all consistent. Now, it's still difficult with Ghost Rider to get your rotation to be, exact from run to run. So I'm trying the best sort of situation or the best sort of rotation to get everything down, with priority on getting the tier 3 built up as fast as I can, and then popping the tier 3 off during a judgment rotation. Now, we dodged the first cage pretty easily with the co-op skill, but we're actually unable to dodge the second cage. But that's fine, because he still does a ton of damage, and this is consistent with all of my other runs where I dodged one cage and let the other one hit me, just for consistency's sake and to know that I'm on the right rhythm. Here, we're just going to wait for the judgment proc to come back before we trigger 6. Do a little bit of 4, and then pop the 3, and that should end it. And that's 406, which is very, very close. On average, I was getting it between 407, 408, and 405, 404 on the slow side. So not as much variation as Gambit, only about 4 seconds, 3 seconds variation between his fastest and slowest runs. It basically depends on whether you play your Ghost Rider conservatively with the 3 and 5 separated, or whether you play him aggressively. I can do this more safely with him taking less damage, but it makes the run take longer, so I'm doing the more aggressive rotation where I lead 5 into 3 instead of splitting 5 and 3 into different rotations. Now, the more interesting part, in my opinion, I mean, it's great that Ghost Rider can still clap. I love that. But now let's see, with an extra 9% damage against supervillains, well, against enemies with the pure evil ability, I should say. Back to stage 24 of Null, and I cannot wait to see what this looks like here. We usually get them down to about 56. Okay, that hasn't changed too much. Gonna trigger that first cage intervention. Alright, we're gonna wait a second here. Alright, we dodge the cage again. Very nice. We pop the 3. Push him into the next cage. Basically the same thing that happened last time. We build up the tier 3. Cheeky. We do get stunned by the cage. Oh no, cage stun. That's the worst. Pop the 6, pop the 5, burst it, pop the 3. Okay. Good thing there's no knockback or any shenanigans like that. Gonna give it a second here. Pop the 6, pop a little bit of the 4, and then the 3. And unfortunately, it's basically the same time. Huh. Dang, that was a really smooth run, and unfortunately, it seems like it's almost identical. 406, 407. I'm not really seeing much of a difference. Let's go see if we see much of a difference or any difference at all versus Cull. So just as a reminder, Gambit was actually 7 seconds faster with the artifact than he was without it, which is pretty huge. So I'm expecting to see something here from Ghost Rider, but on the flip side, for Ghost Rider, he does have a ton of increased damage to villains already, which does make him less likely to gain as much from the increase as Gambit would with his setup. So here we go, we're flying through, and we got to the shield phase. We sort of pushed him into the shield phase quite a bit faster than we did last time. I believe at least 2 or 3 seconds faster, which in this case, given the amount of time that it's taking, is incredibly fast. So we're gonna see what we do here. We're gonna pop the 3, and then the 4, and then 6, and yeah, it's 2 seconds faster. It's very strange. It seems like for Gambit, I did see an increase in his damage in both scenarios, but for Ghost Rider, I'm really only feeling, and again, this is my feeling, but for multiple tests here, it's only really seeming like a small bump for Cull Obsidian, and bizarrely no bump for Null, which is quite strange. So I'm not sure, those findings don't exactly correlate properly with each other. Like if we're seeing the upgrade for Gambit in both, we should see the upgrade in damage for Ghost Rider in both. And if we did see them both for Gambit and we didn't see them both for Ghost Rider, then that would indicate diminishing returns. But he does feel a little bit faster. He's doing a little bit more damage, an extra half bar here and there, versus Cull, which is equating to him gaining just a few seconds, but a few seconds on a fight that lasts 40 seconds is huge. Like, that's 5% more damage or something like that. Like, it's a, you know, it's a calculable amount of damage. That's a whole number that's above 1%. So yeah, I'm not sure if it's a combination of both, if it's a combination of the fact that Gambit doesn't have any increased damage to these enemies with pure, you know, the increased damage supervillain type thing, or if it's something else entirely. Maybe chain hit has something to do with it. I'm not exactly sure. But my conclusion essentially is you're probably going to gain some small advantage from picking up a couple of these generic 3-star artifacts that have that specific yellow text, increases basic damage dealt to enemies with pure evil ability. And when you equip them on characters, you're going to get, you know, a decent upgrade to your damage that's free. Now, you know, how much you're going to get is obviously less than a CTP, less than full Uru sets or full ISO sets, but it's not bad. You know, if you get an extra 5 seconds on your run, that can really be the difference maker between clearing and not clearing, or clearing comfortably and clearing with a stressed out face at the end and, you know, sweat on your hands. So yeah, it's up to you whether you want to sacrifice the 75 Celestial Essence, because if you do equip these, you're not going to unequip them for 500 crystals, let's be real. So you're only ever going to delete this one or replace this one when Ghost Rider finally gets an artifact, or when Gambit finally gets an artifact. And who knows, that could be years away technically, but it's really up to you whether you'd rather have the 75 Celestial Essence, or in the level 2 artifacts, I think it's like 10 Celestial Essence, that you would have gotten from dismantling it. So hopefully this has been interesting and insightful and maybe a little bit helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Hit me up in the comments down below with your thoughts on generic 3-star artifacts. And they also have, side note, value for PvP, but that's sort of another video for another day. So yeah, hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Thanks so much for watching. Smash the like button if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.